Welcome to the Risk Taker Podcast. I'm your host, Ebens, man. I hope you guys are having an amazing day, amazing week, amazing weekend, man. We have one in the books, man. I have my brother here, man. Glenn, how you feeling, my brother?
I'm feeling excited, calm, cool, and collected, and ready to get started, man. It's a good opportunity. Feeling blessed to be here with you, my brother.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it, man. For people that don't know you, man, can you give a little bit background who is Glenn is the CEO, the entrepreneur, the father, the leader, the teacher? Can you let people know who are you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my name is Glenn Irvin Gray Jr., by birth, and there's some folks along my path that also know me as Ayize Glenn Gray. Um, Ayize is a name that I picked up along my spiritual journey. It does have a meaning to it. It means let it happen in Zulu.
Nice.
So we could talk a little bit about that as it relates to risk and going for your dreams, right? But professionally, I work in the real estate space now. I tell people real estate is my second career. I did have a career and a life prior to being a full-time real estate entrepreneur and businessman. I worked in the motion picture industry um, for the good part of my career. I worked in Los Angeles. I worked in New York, where I began my career. And I also worked overseas for 1 year in Lagos, Nigeria.
Oh,
So
nice.
I've had the opportunity to travel a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit about that, like how that came about. And other than my professional background, I'm a father of three children. Um, I'm a husband. I'm a partner. I'm a son of with three other siblings, right? My oldest daughter, she is a freshman now in college, so I'm moving into a new season, right? A new way
Awesome,
to
man.
relate as a dad, you know. I serve my community, through a fraternal organization. So I like to stay busy in my business, but I also like to stay busy in my family and stay busy in supporting the community. And other than that, I have an area of my life that I don't broadcast too much or I don't market, but I'm a spiritual man.
Yeah.
There was some parts of my journey that I actually was a spiritual teacher, a spiritual guide, supporting individuals for their development and their unfoldment here, in this earthly plane. So there's a lot. People have said, wow, you are a Renaissance man. When I first heard it, I was like, wow, that's a big task. But as I
Well,
looked at the meaning and looked at the word, I said, it makes sense. I am a Renaissance man. For fun, I taught myself the bass guitar. So I dabble a little bit with the music thing. And I also paint. I'm a selling artists. I don't have a website up anymore, but I did have a life. I had exhibits, and I paint in the abstract format with acrylic. So it's really more about my meditative, what I'm seeing, what I'm sensing, what I'm feeling in the interior finds itself expressing on the canvas through paint, through color, through stroke, through movement. So yeah, that's a little bit about this tapestry here.
man, this conversation is gonna be nice, man. It's gonna be something, man. So let's get into this, man. What made you? What was the what made you go after your dream? What was that one risk that you took that changed your whole life? No, your whole life, your entrepreneur journey, man. What was that one risk, man, going after your dream? What was that?
Yeah. Um, I was kind of thinking about that. And I love your sweatshirt because in life, there's always two sides of a coin, right? Right? There's the yin, there's the yang, there's the hot, there's the cold, right? And they both have an interplay. So we can talk about risk, But on the other side of risk is the dream chasing.
Yes.
And it all depends on the perspective. So what I would say is when I was chasing my dream, I was also taking a risk, but I did not see it as a risk then. When I look back, I go, oh, that was pretty risky, right? It was pretty risky to graduate in 1992 from Clark Atlanta University, create an internship through one conversation from a guest speaker who happened to visit a marketing class and gave his phone number out to the entire class. One individual called, that was me. I was blessed that the individual did not travel back to Lagos. Well, he missed his flight. So because he missed his flight, I was able to have a long conversation with him because he was still local. This was before WhatsApp and all these Vonage and all these ways to have long distance phone calls. Like I would have to pay to speak to him for a long time in
For a long
Lagos,
time.
Nigeria, from Atlanta, Georgia. Like, right? So that was a blessing. We had a conversation. I told him what my vision was, which was always to travel to Africa and, visit, the motherland and, just fulfill on this dream that I had, right? This desire. Came up with this idea that had never been proposed before. He took it back to his business constituents in Lagos. I did the task that was put before me. So, right, there's always the risk, and then there's
Yep.
action it has to take. So I
Yep.
took those actions that he described that I needed to take. And, a couple months later, I get a letter and they've created this internship out of the blue, out of the thin air, and I was invited to join them for 3 months in Lagos, Nigeria. So graduated from college, left my apartment in Atlanta, went back home to New York City, took a full part-time job, right? It was a temporary job, but it was full-time, working in the New York City school system, doing maintenance, because I had a family member that opened that door for me. I did maintenance all summer. I made enough money to buy a plane ticket, right? So I had two conversations. The conversation with the man before he told me, right? And then the conversation of saying, here's my plane ticket, here's my flight, this is
Yep.
when I arrive. I need somebody to meet me at the airport, right?
Yep.
It's pretty risky, right? I didn't
Yes.
know them from a line on the highway. I didn't, but I was following the dream. And but what I did do was I bought an open round trip ticket because that
Mm.
part of me knew that if I got over there and I liked what I was experiencing and I wanted to experience more, I would want to stay.
Hey.
So I bought an open ticket. It cost a little more. Right, took some risks, spent some little extra money, cost a little more. I went over there and lo and behold, I ended up renewing my visa a few other times and I stayed for 1 year.
All right, risk takers, quick break before we dive back in. If you've been building, grinding, and betting on yourself, it's time your wardrobe matched your mindset. OWIG apparel isn't just clothing, it's a statement. From the bold risk taker hoodies to the signature dream chasers tees, every piece is designed to remind you why you started. Shop now at owigapparel.com because when you walk in purpose, your clothes should speak before you do. Back to the episode.
Wow,
Yeah,
man.
for 3 months. And that experience has shaped me, continues to shape me today, continues to influence some of the projects that I, been working on back on the continent, because now the continent is popular, it's sexy, folks are
Yep.
moving over there. This was 1992, you know,
Yep.
when I went over there. So people could say, yeah, I was a trendsetter, whatever, but that was a risk that I took, but I was really chasing the dream.
Yep. And you mentioned something. It's the action because you may have a dream, you may have this idea, but if you never take action on that dream, it will never come. It will never come true. So you did
That's
the
right.
most. You did the most important steps is by taking action. With that action, you had a great experience. No, one of my wife and I go to Nigeria. No, so go to Nigeria
Yeah,
to visit the motherland. Now to have that
yeah,
experience. So I'm
yeah,
glad that you were able to do that. No,
yeah,
and that experience shaped you till this day. So that is
absolutely.
awesome, man. That is awesome, man. You said the keyword is the action. You met somebody. Now you met somebody. The person tell you, "Oh, here's the step. Here's what you need to do." You figured it out. then you made it happen, you know, by taking action.
Yeah.
So I love that, man. And let me ask you this, like the experience when you got to Nigeria, how was the coming from America going to
Yeah.
Nigeria? How was that? It's two different country. Like
Right.
how was it a culture shock? Like what was the thing that you took away that you could still
Yeah.
apply today?
Absolutely. So I tell folks, I was fortunate to have grown up in New York City and had an early exposure and often interaction on New York City trains and subways and people, and just what it takes to move in New York City from birth to you go off to college, right? So I had all kinds of experiences. So because of that, because I tell folks, Lagos is like New York City or any metropolis in this country on steroids. It's way more people, it's a lot faster, the hustle is strong, everybody's committed to whatever it is they say that they're about, they are about it. They're committed to it. From the CEO of the banking to the individual who's walking around the neighborhood clicking on the box to get your attention so he can shine his shoes.
Yep.
So it can shine your shoes. Everybody is committed and everybody's on it. And one of the first things that I experienced, what was when I got into the city. So I lived in an area called Ikeja, which is a main kind of active suburb of the main, downtown area, right? And I lived right in the middle of hustle and the bustle. But in the back of my compound was the neighborhood. So the front was the major street, action all day, all night. The back was pretty quiet, just a neighborhood street. So I'm standing towards the back, looking out the gate. The individuals that I was going to be working for and living in the compound, they were out of town. They were in Liberia filming a documentary. So I went over to do an internship in television and commercial production, right? So that was my undergraduate major, communications. So they were in Liberia filming parts of their documentary on the children soldiers. So no one was around except for the security guards. I'm standing there looking at the back of the fence, and I see this young man walking down the street. And he has no shoes on because that's popular, right? So he's
Yep.
walking down this dusty, dirty road, right? And he has a car battery balanced on his head. Now, usually you see the women with the wrap
Yes.
that
Yep.
then they put the bucket or the bag or whatever. So it creates like a buffer. This
Mm-hmm.
young man didn't need the wrap. He had the battery balanced on his head with his hands to his side, walking in lockstep order. Like, I am not concerned that this battery is going to fall off my head. I know I have it balanced. I'm good. And he was making it happen. And I stood there and I just watched him pass me. And in my mind, I said, all right, Dorothy, Kansas has gone bye-bye. Everything you thought you knew about life and existence and how people move and live, it's going to be different. And that was the first real interaction, that I had with the people. And I loved it. I had baby naming ceremonies. I worked hard. I had friends and parties and culture experiences, spiritual experiences, the whole rich tapestry. Yeah. And so, again, it's in me, still live with it, from sun up to sundown, right? You be about your business.
Yep.
And what's the weather today? It's hot.
You
Period. It's hot. I remember when I asked that question, what's the temperature? They looked at me, temperature, hot. Oh, that's it. It's hot.
Yep.
That's it.
That's
Period.
it.
That's it. Make it happen.
Yep. funny,
Yeah.
funny you say that, man. Was it my wife and I? We went to the Bahamas to visit her family. And this is where she from. She grew up, and
Okay.
we were in
Oh,
the
okay.
yeah. So we were in the car with her sister, and I guess my wife forgot like where she was at. She was like, she asked her sister, "What's the weather today?" And my sister-in-law look at her like, what? What do you mean? What's the weather? What? This is not.
Right.
This is not. this is not
There's
America.
no forecast, right?
It's
It's
it's hot.
raining in the moment. It's raining.
It's
It's
raining.
not. It's like you don't need forecast. Now, what are you experiencing right now? You're experiencing heat. So the weather today is hot.
Hot. Yep.
And when it's raining, you're experiencing rain. The weather today is rain. but the weather doesn't dictate whether you get up and do what you have to do.
Yep.
Right? The only thing that dictates that is sun up. When the sun's up, you're on your grind. When the sun's down, you're home, you're doing the things in your home life. That's it. Sun up to sun down. Make it happen.
Yep.
End of story.
Yep. Yep.
So for a young man, that was powerful, you know. But yeah. So yeah, so that was my, African experience. And I'll let you take it from there.
So throughout your entrepreneur journey, man, because I know
Yeah.
some people like we talk about the great stuff now, and we open this business. This is the impact that we make. This is how, like, throughout your entrepreneur journey, like, what was like because we have to go through some failure. No, that's one thing that I love. I love people to let me about the success. Let me know about the success, but let me know what you went through to get to where you at now. Like, throughout your entrepreneur journey, man, like what's some of failure that you had gone through, that you had to find ways to get back up. Now get back up again. Don't let that failure put you down. Like, talk about some of these things.
Yeah, I'll talk about that because that will dovetail right into how this new iteration of my spiritual journey started. And again, when I say new iteration, I mean over 19 years ago. So I've been on this path now, for what I do to maintain my life and my headspace and my heart space for over 19 years now. But I tell you that I started my career in the motion picture industry, and I started in New York as a locations manager, was guided, took a risk with some guidance and moved to Los Angeles, just like I did when I went to Africa, right? Same kind of thing. So there's been a pattern, right? I haven't been afraid to make the move that was necessary to fulfill whatever that dream was calling me towards. So,
have you ever felt like you're building something with no blueprint? Just hustle, faith, and late nights holding it all together? Then this book is for you. Building from scratch, from hustle to strategy. How to build, scale, and succeed in business isn't just a book. It's a playbook. Written by the dynamic duo behind this very podcast, it's packed with the real lessons, mindset shifts, and step-by-step game plans they use to build from absolutely nothing. If you're stuck in hustle mode, but ready for strategy, this book meets you right there. Grab your copy now at the Dynamic Duos speaks.com. Because your next level requires a new strategy.
Had an opportunity to move through that new phase of my career. Was blessed to start a company with a prominent investor. So there was the funds there was the celebrity that was around this time of my life, and things were rolling, things were good, And I made a couple of personal choices that created a disruption in the relationship with me and my business partner, which ended, our relationship on a business level, right? And then that catapulted me to have to try to maintain this company on my own. There's certain things that I learned about myself and learned about business today that I would have did things differently as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, right? I was more of a hustler, a transaction guy, right? Didn't understand true business structure, operations, all these other things. So I had a very myopic view as well, right? So I was forced to have to shut down that business. And not only did I have to shut down that business, I also, in turn, lost a relationship, right?
Yep.
So I lost a relationship, I lost living, I lost transportation, and I found myself actually homeless for a short period of time. I didn't have to live in the streets, but I did have to stay with individuals' homes until I was back on my feet again. And one of the first books that I picked up was at my buddy's house. It was called Failing Forward by John Maxwell.
Man, that's one of my favorite authors, man. That's one of my favorite authors.
Absolutely.
Yep.
He's the man, John Maxwell. It's called Failing Forward. How do you fail and move forward at the same time? Fortunate for me, I have done a more of a kind of personal growth and development path. So I was working with this organization called Landmark Education, and it was all about how do you become a better person in your life, right? But it
Yep.
really wasn't in the heart space. So it wasn't spiritual. It was, very, tactical, practical, affirmations, thinking, how do you be, that type of thing. So I had that to fall back on, right? And then through that work, I had an opening to actually support myself at a deeper level, which was through my spirituality. In fact, the work has you create possibilities. And I know to this day, I remember to this day, I created the possibility of being at one and in union with God as a presence in my life. And then it's also the kind of work that says it's one thing to create a possibility, but what are the actions you're going to take to fulfill on that?
Yep.
And one of those actions led me to go and be in a community of other spiritual seekers that I knew existed. But at that time in my life, I didn't have a relationship with me and religion. I grew up in the church. I'm a child of a minister. So I kind of moved away from that in a rebellious aspect in early parts of my life. But my inner soul was telling me, no, your next step, in order to fulfill on this possibility that you say, there's action you got to take. And
Yep.
in that action, I felt myself comfortable. I felt myself ready to experience what it feels like to have the spirit move through you, and you recognize that there is a divine presence. Doesn't matter what you call it. Doesn't matter the religion that you walk through. There's one. There's a presence, and it's everywhere, and it's been
Yep.
around since existence, and will always be. Right. So I connected with that, began to study, and with that organization, right? So yeah, I lost it all, right? I had to come back from the depths, but I had to. One of the things that I remember telling myself was, you know what? I've been on this train. It's been moving real fast, and I got on it young. So all of these Hollywood stories, these in my 20s. This is
20s.
early. So I was
Mm-hmm.
young, having fun, making money, doing movies, the whole Hollywood lifestyle. And I was like, this train has been going quickly. And at this stage of my life, I don't even know who's on the train with me. I don't know where the train is going. So when life crashed, I had a chance to get off that train,
Mm-hmm.
discover who I am from a different perspective, from the inside out. And that journey led me to over 20 years of pursuing things like yoga and meditation and affirmations and affirmative prayer and working with individuals. It led me to my artistic side, where I began to paint and express, right, that
Yep.
nature that I am. And I still have my practice today, for myself. So that's been my guiding principle, is faith for me is, but, and there's a scripture that talks about it that said it's the belief in things unknown, belief in things unseen,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But I also say, there's the belief part, but the opposite of that is you don't really have to believe as much as you have to interact and work and use it and practice it, because you don't have to believe in electricity to turn on the light switch.
Right.
You could believe in electricity and live in the dark if you don't take the action and turn on the light.
Right. Yep.
You don't have to believe in gravity to jump off a building and hurt yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Yep.
it's not, belief is important, but belief to a certain extent should just spur an action. And then
Yep.
in that action, you move from belief to knowing. So I know that I live in a loving, productive, beneficial universe. I know that the presence is because I've experienced it. I don't have to let somebody tell me to believe it, right? I know that what I hold in my mind and what I speak with my mouth, I can create in conjunction with the energy, with conjunction with all these esoteric things that people talk about. And yes, it's been put in many different scriptures, in many different paths, for many different people, from many different places around this world. But at the end of the day, there's only one thing that's really going on. It's just
Yep.
different languaging around it, right? Different dialects around it.
Right.
And I got to experience that when I lived in Africa as well, experiencing African spirituality, right?
Yep.
Which predated a lot of the stuff that you hear and see in the Western world today. Nothing wrong, but as people evolve, things evolve, right? The
Yep.
way you practice evolve, the way you make a connection evolves. So I use that in my business. I remember, one of the other biggest decisions I had to make in terms of risk was coming to terms with crash, the great financial crisis. So after I left the film industry, the way I built myself financially and business-wise was I worked in the mortgage industry. I had a partner. So after I healed and did some work, I manifested a new relationship that
Mm-hmm.
that brought me into the mortgage industry. And so for about 3 years, I worked in the mortgage industry in Los Angeles. And it was just before the great financial crisis. We all know what happened there.
There.
I
Yep.
didn't realize what I was involved in until I saw that movie, The Big Short and Too Big to Fail. And I'm like, oh, this is what I was involved in? Wow.
Wow.
Things were done, loans were being made, folks were making, but what I realized is even when I was doing those transactions, I would have moments where things get stalled, business wasn't unfolding, people wasn't calling back, whatever it was. And a lot of times, what I would do is I would slow down. I have this term, I've heard it in the world before, but I used to have this term, slow down to speed up,
Mm.
slow down to speed up. So I would pull away from the busyness and the action of the day. I would go somewhere quiet, meditate, go within, and tap in to the universe, to that
Yep.
which is making everything unfold, right? Slow down, heartbeat, actions, and just allow that whatever's trying to happen, let it unfold on its own. I don't need to call the underwriter, the processor, yelling at people, cursing people out. Where's the forms? When are we going to close? I don't need to do all of that. I don't need to I don't need to do all that. I can just pull away, do my thing, and activate the powers that are here and all
Yep.
around, right? So I would do that constantly. So that's how sometimes, people say, how do you bring spirituality? Hey, you know what you know.
True.
You have a set of practices that you can actually engage in, right? Operations, right?
Yep.
I'm very practical, right? Very scientific too, right? So there's operations that I do, there are things that I know that I can do that cause me to feel a certain way, that get my mind right. And in my
Mm-hmm.
mind and in my feeling tone, I affect the physical universe
Yep.
around me. Things begin to happen.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean,
Yep.
this podcast is an example. So I saw you doing your podcast and we knew each other. And I was like,
Yep.
you know what? I would love to be on this podcast, man. I talked to this brother during text messages, but it never comes up. So part of me was like, won't you call him and ask? I was like, no, I'm not going to call and ask in the physical realm.
Yep.
I'm going to go within, put it into my world, into my interior world, send the message out, and let it unfold. And lo and
Yep.
behold, some time elapsed. I don't know, it was a few days, a week. It wasn't a long period of time.
Yep.
The email from you was like, oh, hey,
Oh.
brother, you want to be? I said, here we go. You know, so sometimes it's good to get a reminder that this thing works.
Yep.
Lebanon says, you can't lose with the stuff I use.
That's true. That's true, man. That's true, man. You saying a lot of things that you said, like a couple stuff that caught my attention. You did a lot of stuff when you was young. Now you took a lot of risks when you were young, while you're in your 20s. That's very important. Like that's one advice I give to people that's younger than me. That's there in their 20s. That's the best time to start. Like that's the best time to start going after your dream because you don't have no kids, no wife, nothing yet. Going after your dream. So I love when you say that you took a lot of risks on your 20s. One thing that you say, you have to work on yourself from that failure, from that business that fell. You have to go work on yourself mentally, spiritually. You have to work on yourself, right? And you have to invest, not just only work on yourself, but invest in yourself by reading book, personal development. That's big. No, that's
Workshops, coaches. It's not cheap either. It costs money.
yep, yep,
Absolutely. But you have to invest. You have to invest.
yep,
And absolutely, man.
Yep.
But I just love, again, I always go to your dream chasers, dream chasers, risk takers. It's all one thing there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now let me ask you this. Now being a father, being a husband, um, how is that fulfillment? Like that's one thing that no, because I'm a dad, I'm a husband. How is that fulfillment? Like you going after your dream now, your goals has changed because now you have a family, right? Can you speak a little bit on that? Like how that now you have to be not being hustle, but you have to be strategic. You have to put stuff in place to achieve these goals, these dreams now because you have a family that's depending on you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it started, after the mortgage industry, I transitioned, the great financial crisis. I had to make a choice. And that risk that I took, that choice that I made was to chase a different dream. And that dream was this newborn child that was born into my life. My dream was to pour into her. That's grown to 3 children now, but in that moment, it was to pour into her and give her everything that I can give her, and not from the physical world, because those things will unfold. It was all my learnings, all my teachings, like the best of me, all my art, my creative expression, like give her a chance to unfold in the best way possible for what her soul has come to do on this planet. And that was so the risk I took was to leave the working world and become again another anomaly.
Yep.
Today is popular, what I'm about to talk about. But in 2006, a stay-at-home father in an A-type, male-dominated Los Angeles was not popular.
Okay.
I was the only guy out there doing it. And I made a conscious choice to do it, to pour into her. Fortunately, my wife, she had a stable situation, and I was going from hustle to hustle, right? So it's like, yes, I can hustle to hustle and pay somebody to take care of my child. Or I can give that part of me up and pour into her and be around every day. And in the minute, and in the first couple of months, it was difficult because I still had I still had that hustle, I still had that drive. So the biggest challenge about that choice was surrendering to the choice.
Mm.
And a lot of times we don't know that we haven't surrendered to a particular choice, even if it's the thing that we desire most.
Yep.
Opening up a store, whatever that business, whatever that idea is, we're holding on to something. So a lot of times growth is not about getting things, it's about letting go of things, relearning who you are,
Yes.
relearning. So I had
Yes.
to let go of that part of me that wanted to chase deals. And so I took that same energy and I did it different. So it was easy for me to jump on the phone, put together a home study package. It was easy for me to go find things to do during the day for my daughter. So I actually treated her like a business. I treated her education and her development like a bit. I used those attributes, right? The skills that I had developed, the attributes that I had formed, right? That I was blessed with, and I poured them into her, and I poured them into me of being a dad, a full-time stay-at-home dad. And the day I surrendered and gave up chasing, I dived right in, 10 toes down. And today, she's a freshman at
Nice.
a highly selective liberal arts college. She got accepted into, I think, 17 or 18 other schools, and each
That's
one of those
awesome,
schools
man.
are somebody's dream. Every school she got accepted to is on somebody's #1 list.
Oh, man.
But fortunate for her, she chose the one that was #1 for her,
All right.
right?
Yep.
And I've watched her unfold. Behind her has been her brother and her younger sister, and they've all had the impact. So for 8 years, I started that journey, and for 8 years, I was a full-time stay-at-home father. Eight
Wow.
years in Los Angeles, and I got tons of stories about how you do that, how it unfolds, lesson plans. I even homeschooled, my daughter for 1 year. I didn't believe in TVs. I believe and the screen is a distraction from who
Yep.
you really are. So the more time you spend consuming, the less time you can spend creating.
Creative. That's so
I
true.
always tell my kids, use your tools that you have now. Well, use these devices as tools, not toys.
Yes.
Your phone should be a tool, not a toy.
Not a toy. Yep.
For adults, I have to remind myself that now, right? When
Yep.
I'm scrolling, like, am I in toy land or am I in tool land right now? Right?
Yep.
And I think about talking to young people today. It's like today is a great time to be a creator. When I was coming through the ranks, even though I worked in the creative field, I wasn't a true creator. I was more on the business side. So I was creating projects, but from the business perspective, right? But I always tell folks today, the outlets are endless.
Yep. It is.
I mean, look at what you're doing. I mean, do you know what you're going to do to pull off a podcast in 2006 or 92? There was no way you were gonna, do this.
It
No,
is. Yep.
no, and just put it out there and have it monetized, have books that are being published. Like all of these things to create. This is the great time to be alive, the great time to be a creator, a great time to chase your dreams, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
yeah, there might be some risk, but then you can mitigate that, right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah. You
So the
can.
dream part is the vision part. That's
Yes.
the hard part. The risk part is the practical part,
Yep.
right? That's when you can mitigate it. If things that you can do, right? I had to learn that. It was very easy for me because I was a shoot, ready, aim kind of guy, right? Things sometimes worked out, but I was shoot. Like when I said yes to Nigeria, I didn't know what anything. There was no plan. I didn't know how much plane tickets. Like I didn't do any research. I just followed, right? He gave
Yep.
his phone number out. I called him. He's like, there's a possibility. He said, put letters of recommendations together, put a reel together. So I took those actions. I did what he asked, right? But I didn't know what it was going to look like, but I shot that shot. And then I kind of planned it. And then I said, oh, this is, but as I'm mature, as I'm responsible, going back to your question about other people and other lives, I
Mhm.
realized that I aim, ready, shoot. So there's a balance now that I try to bring into my life, especially as a real estate developer, someone
Yep.
who has a fiduciary responsibility to other people's capital, whether
Yep.
it's a personal investor or a bank or whatever institution. So I can't, you know what I mean? I have to kind of rebalance. So I had to look at myself and reorganize the way I see life, and at one point it got tricky for me because I really couldn't. I got too much into the aim, ready, and I wasn't
Hmm.
shooting, right?
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, now I'm stagnant, right? And I realized that I got stagnant, right? So I had to readjust. So life is all about paying attention, readjusting, not getting stuck in one way, and being honest and being truthful about what's going on. And there's one thing about meditation, it allows you to be honest and truthful about what's going on within you, not to judge you, not to
Hmm.
hold you down, but to give you feedback on your life, who you are, your interior world. And then you can work on it in the exterior world.
That's true. That's true. How did you become a real estate developer, real estate investor? How did you become that? Like what was the key thing that you made a choice? You know what? This is what I'm gonna be focused on. I'm gonna like what made you go
Yeah,
in?
yeah. So the short answer was I was in the middle of a project.
Okay.
I was literally building my first home. So I had already flipped houses, but I didn't make that decision. I'm gonna give you my decision. I was in the middle of a project. I was standing in front of a home that I was building in Durham, North Carolina. And I saw three young men across the street at the church that was usually vacant when I was working.
Hmm.
That was usually empty. This would happen to be a Saturday afternoon. There must have been some missionary thing going on, some activity. And there were three young men standing on the steps. And it flashed me back to growing up in New York when I was one of three at Allen AME Church, hanging out at the church. I was a maintenance young man. I was always around the church cleaning. My two best friends to this day, my three best friends to this day, we met at that church. We spent hours and hours there. I flashed back and I saw myself. I was like, wow, that was me and my boys. And then I thought about my mentor, who was the financial controller of the church and the pastor of the church, who was a businessman, who was a real estate developer, who built up South Jamaica, Queens through economic development, building homes, building senior citizens buildings, building schools, building that stuff. And he allowed us to be involved, to listen to phone calls, to see and to be active in hearing what was going on. He was pouring into me in the time that I didn't even know he was pouring into me. And I stood
Man.
there with my house behind me going up, seeing myself, and I was like, whoa, this is a full circle moment. This is amazing. Reverend Flake poured into me. I'm actually developing real estate. I didn't really see it like that. I was just flipping houses. I was just, turning transactions, doing deals. I hadn't made that connection. And then I had an investor seeking an investment opportunity with me. And I did research on this individual. And I found out about the industry that I was involved in that I didn't know existed. Through researching him, I realized it was bigger than me. And there was a structure. And there was this real thing called real estate developers. And this is what they do. And even though I was just using my location management skills, my film skills, my working and negotiating I was using all these soft skills that I had done to make movies, right? Right. And I was just doing it in the real estate space, but I didn't have a connection until I saw the bigger picture. And I was like, wow, I like it. It feels good. I like making the calls. I like doing the zoning. I like all the activities. It's a natural fit for me. I like building something from scratch. That's a film, right? That's an idea. I like working with people. I like negotiating. I like putting deals together. I was like, whoa, this is amazing. I actually found the next chapter of my life. Now, this wasn't my first project. I had flipped other houses, I had wholesale, I had bought a flip business, I had mentors, I had been to workshops, but again, I never made that connection. And it was basically when I moved from Los Angeles to Durham, North Carolina, I had to get back in the workforce. So those 8 years were complete. And I remember, asking myself, what are you going to do, right? You're not going to work in film because that's in New York, that's in LA, right?
Yep.
You made up some money there, that's good. And I was like, well, what can I do? I dabbled with art, thinking I was going to be like an artist and sell paintings. It wasn't going to be sustainable, right? Had part-time jobs, I call them band-aid jobs, right? And then I just got deep and just started having soulful conversations about the next chapter. Logistically, hey man, you did mortgages, that was a good time. It was real estate related, but you're not going to go back to the mortgage world because that was, I was the people guy. My partner was the numbers guy. So I'm like, all right, well, people, who in real estate deals with people? I'm like, oh, agents. All right, I don't know if I'm gonna be an agent, but I know I gotta get a license. So let me just walk down that path, the next logical step. Sometimes taking risk and going to this thing that's called the unknown, it's about what's the next step. How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right?
That's it.
Take the next step. Take the next step. What's logical? Well, the logical thing is get a license. It puts me in the conversation, right? I'm driving home from my part-time overnight job. A radio commercial comes on. You're going to notice like a theme. Radio commercial comes on, talking about come to this workshop, learn about flipping, learn about real estate, investing, and I turned it off. And I was like, ain't no way. I don't get enough real estate, in LA, there's a workshop, there's a conference on every street corner. I don't done it. Tony Robbins, Jack Canfield, tons of them. Sandy, all of them. I'm like, I'm not dealing with that. I'm out of that game. And my voice said, you said that you were going to be open to the possibility of getting into this real estate space. You just turned off a commercial about real estate just because you feel a certain way. Be open. Be open. I turned it back on. I end up following what was next. Show up to listen to a free seminar, free conversation. I said it's free. I'll go. I go, your typical Holiday Inn, hotel, banquet room. You sit there, the guy's pitching the room, and what he said made sense. So I'm like, all right, what, $20 to go to the next step? Whatever it was, that was coffee. I'm like, all right, let me take the next step. Let me go to this long version of this conversation. And something happened there. Yes, he's talking about real estate. Talk about making money. You
Yep.
talk about systems, which I believe in, right? Systems make businesses work. McDonald's is McDonald's not because they make good burgers. It's because they
Because they
have
have a great
excellent
system.
systems
They have a
that
great system.
teenagers can fulfill on. So
Yep.
systems. So I saw systems. And then some of the pain points. Like I had worked, even though I wasn't officially flipping houses, but in Los Angeles, I had to renovate a couple of units, right? That tenants took out, took
Hmm.
me, they were about to take me out. So I had to fix them up. And I
Yep.
learned and I saw the pain about contractors and people not showing up on time. So all these things that they were talking about, I related to the pain. And then he was like, we got systems to alleviate the pain.
Mm.
But above and beyond that, he was mentioning books and teachers that I had already either read or I knew existed. And I was like, there's something deeper going on here. This is not just about real estate. This is about transformation. This
Yep.
is about mind. This is about, he mentioned Think and Grow Rich. He mentioned John Maxwell,
So.
right? He mentioned Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. I know T. Harv Eker personally. I'm like, wait a minute, dude. Like my spiritual center in LA brought all these cast of characters together, right? So I'm like, this is deeper. So short story, made the plunge. My wife, we made the investment, and we learning how to flip houses, do wholesaling, that entry level type real estate. So prior to me building that house, that I had
Hmm.
this epiphany, I was already active because I was using those systems to start that business. So that's what I decided to do was get into real estate, get my license, not to become a realtor that day, but to be in that space. So even today, I hold licenses in multiple states, but those transactions are beneficial, right?
Yep.
But it's really about being in the room because as a realtor, you got to renew your license. So that means you got to take classes. It means you got to continue to learn. You got
Learn.
to educate yourself. And you never know who's in that classroom with you. That might be a business partner. That might be an investor. That might be, you never know. So you
That's
put
true.
yourself in the path of progress. As long as you continue to put yourself in the path of progress, you never know the cast of characters, the spontaneous meetings, like how we met, right?
Yep. That's very true.
Who we are today.
We met at a network event now at a real estate
Exactly.
developer network event in Philly
Exactly.
now, and we
That's right.
just strike a conversation, and from there we built a genuine relationship. Now
Exactly.
it's about getting the room. That's one thing. It's about
Mhm.
finding a person that you could connect with. Could
Yeah.
find one person that you could connect with. You could build a true relationship, and from that true relationship, you never know where it could lead. Now, it might
That's
not
right.
lead to a business deal. It might lead to something else. So it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be always about money. Now, it doesn't have to be a transaction. But that's what I learned throughout my years. Like building a relationship with a person. It's not about money. It's so much things that I can offer, you could offer. There's other stuff that we have value that we could offer to each other. So it doesn't have to be about money, man. So
That's
that's
right.
that's one thing that I could say. Now let me ask you this: for entrepreneur, now who's in the that's for the season. Two question for you. For a seasoned entrepreneur who's been in this journey for five, 7 years. Now they had success, they had failure, right? What advice would you give to them now for them to go to the next level? What advice for the seasoned entrepreneur? For the new entrepreneur that wanna take a risk, they have that vision, that idea, but they don't know how to. Now they don't know what they need to do. What advice would you give to the new one and the seasoned entrepreneur? What advice?
Yeah. And you might hear similarities to both pieces of advice. Because at the end of the day, whether you're just getting started for a long-term journey or you've been on that journey and you're looking to recreate, you're both essentially beginning something new. So I would say there's a Eastern philosophy thinking, I'm not sure if it's Zen Buddhism or something, but it's about having the beginner's mind, right? So you always have a mindset that you are a beginner. in the West, we say you can always learn, right?
Yep.
Like, don't think you know everything, right? Be
True.
open to learn, be open and available, right? So it's having that approach, first and foremost, a beginner's mind. How can I grow? What is there for me to learn, right? Now, what do I want to do? I want to begin. I'm a brand new entrepreneur, right? Whatever industry it is, right? Or I'm a seasoned entrepreneur looking to grow, looking to get to the next level. Well, you're not at that next level. So essentially, you're just like that person started. You are beginning something new, right? So mindset first. Work on the mindset. Mindset always first, right? Then have a vision. Be very clear on what it is that you want. Whatever that next step is, beginning, next step, already there, next step higher. Be clear on that vision. Turn that vision into an intention. Take that intention and make it into an affirmation. So every day you get to say, I am such and such. I am beginning my journey as an entrepreneur to be successful and to help whatever it is. I am going to grow my business by X amount. I am going to expand, whatever that is. So it's all mindset-based stuff. So that way you can carry what it is that you're trying to create within yourself. And you don't get outside of yourself thinking the external world is going to bring you something. The external world will get to participate with what you create from the interior, right? And then you start asking deep, fundamental questions. What is the logical step that I need to take? What is it? Is there a license that I need to get? Is there something that I need to learn? Like, what is a person who's doing what I want to do that's a little further along than I am? Can I connect with them? Is there a relationship that I need? Education that I need? Financial resource that I need? What are the resources that I'm going to need to take the very next step? And then I would say, take the step, right?
Yep.
Don't look too far into the future. It's unknown, but that's okay. Right? Take the very next step. And then practically, I would say, use artificial intelligence.
There we go. There we go.
Because this whole world that we're in today is you have a support system around you that can help you vet ideas, that can help you be more efficient, that can help you operations. Like, it's a resource. And it's a resource that I think a lot of people kind of take for granted because it's kind of in the lexicon of a languaging that is popular and how everybody's doing it, but it really is meaningful and it really is deep and it really is the next evolution of productivity, of business, of education, of healthcare. It really is, beyond the chat GPTs and all the large language models, the Claudes, perplexities of the world. Beyond those 3-4 companies that everybody knows, there's a lot of other things going on, a lot of other resources, a lot of other tools that you can use, right? So, and I use that today in order to get to the next level in terms of as an advisor with my consultancy. How can I expand my capacity to serve more people, right?
Yeah.
That's really what it is. Your business is about service. I tell my children that. You have an idea, you solve a problem, and you serve the person who has that problem, right? Well, artificial intelligence can help you serve more, serve faster, right? Condense your time. You get more done. And it's a whole lot of fun having somebody that you can talk to that never gets tired, that all the knowledge in the world is available at your fingertips but you gotta learn something, right? You do gotta go learn. You gotta learn how to prompt. You gotta learn how to ask good questions. You gotta learn how to use this new tool. It goes to the education part. But you gotta be open-minded to know that it's something for you to engage in. So I think the beginning person and the seasoned person, we can, because I use those same ideas, right? The difference between the seasoned person and the beginner is they may have a little more look back. They may have a little more reflective material, right, that they can look at and maybe create a different outcome because they have a different perspective because they've been in the game, they've done some things, they see what has worked, what has not worked. So that's the biggest difference. But truly just taking that next step, moving into chasing the dream and mitigating the risk, becoming a risk taker, right? because you're chasing, your dream, whether you're beginning day 1 or you're day 500, about to start again to get to the next level. I think the similarities are there because they're fundamental principles. There's one thing about life. The principles never change. It's like science, fundamental principles. It's like sports, right? You can do all the moves in the world, but if the team start messing up, what is the coach do? We go back to the fundamentals. Let's go back to dribbling, passing, right?
Yeah,
Make sure
right.
your left
Back to the
hand,
basic.
back to the basics. There's fundamentals, right? And mindset. As you think, you become.
True.
Think and grow rich. As a man thinketh,
Think.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, one of the great master teachers, and savior for some, a teacher for others, right? His words gave the science, right? You can read it in scripture. It's science there, right? And yeah. So it's just get back to it, man. That's what I would say.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There you have it, man. There you have it, man. Glenn, man, thank you so much. If people wanna get in touch with you, like where do they find you? Now, what platform, what website? I know I'm gonna put all these things in the description, but if you could let people know where would they find you?
Yes. You can find me on Instagram. I'm trying to grow that platform, for myself. I have 2 handles. The first one is Glenn Yes to Real Estate. So Glenn with 2 N's, Glenn Yes to Real Estate. More of a personal page, community service, and some business sprinkled in is I am Ayize Glenn Gray. AYIZEGLENNGRAY. I am Ayize Glenn Gray. Glenn Yes to Real Estate. You can find me on LinkedIn. Definitely follow me if you got questions. Love to answer questions. Again, Moyo Imara Group is my firm, right? We do consulting, we do advising, and we are brokered, empowered by EXP Realty, which is a whole other conversation about generating passive residual income and utilizing the work that you can do as an agent, but also grow long-term income that you can pass down to your children. Legacy. We ain't even touch on legacy.
Yeah. We ain't even touching that. We're gonna do a part 2. This is just the beginning.
We'll come back
definitely
and we'll talk about
part.
legacy.
Yeah. And this time it's gonna be live. Now it's gonna be live. You and I, we're not gonna be on Zoom. It's gonna be live. So yeah.
That'd be great.
Part 2. Watch out for part 2. But
Awesome.
yeah. But ladies and gentlemen, there you have it, man. There you have it, man. And I will see you guys in the next episode.